So in this video, we're going to be waterproofing a bathroom floor, which I think is really one of the biggest and most important parts of renovating a bathroom is waterproofing. So whether it's the tub surround or the bathroom floor itself, it's something that's going to make sure that you preserve the life of the bathroom. All too many times, these old bathrooms, you tear up things and you see rotten wood, you see mold, and this is really the way to prevent that. So in this particular situation, we had floor heating down because I really love floor heating and a lot of my clients do. And we're going to waterproof it. And what I'm going to be using is a liquid waterproofing. Now there's many different systems to waterproof. We're going to go into the pros and cons of each and how to go about it. But it really comes down to the tile selection that you're planning on installing. So let's get through the points and waterproof this bathroom. So first thing is we had this floor leveled. So everything's 100% flat, and which is really what I really highly recommend because, you know, when you get a 6-foot level down here and there's no space anywhere and you're nice and level, it works out really great for these small mosaic tiles. If you've ever planned to do smaller tiles like this, it's imperative to have a really nice flat floor. So you can see on this 6-foot level, there's no space anywhere. Everything's 100% flat. So floor leveler is definitely the way to get you a little bit more precise with your installation. Now, after I used spray foam all the way around the perimeter to keep that expansion and contraction around the toilet. And I always recommend having a bag of feather finish on hand to be able to fill in areas, especially like against the tub or around your toilet supply. Another option, you might not know about, because feather finish doesn't need to be primed and you can immediately use this, but it can only go up to a 1/2 inch thickness. So if you had a thicker floor, you might want to go with something like this, which is the Ardix AM100. It's a pretty specific brand of stuff, but it's basically a rapid setting mud bed mix, and it can go up to 1.25 inches. So I always have these on hand as a contractor, just in case I need to fill something in really quickly so I can move on with the waterproofing system. So once you have all these things established, ready to go, then you can move on to the actual waterproofing system. So when it comes to waterproofing, there's a lot of different systems out there. This is probably one of the most popular. You've probably seen me install hundreds of feet of this here online on how to go about installing Ditra. It's a great product, and I really find it to be best for larger tiles. So 12 by 24s, plank tile, anything with that larger size, because in order to waterproof this, you need to have a band that goes over the seams. Most of these products are only about 3 foot wide, so you're going to have a seam somewhere within the bathroom that you're going to have to address to make it waterproof, and that seam is problematic for smaller tiles like this. Any little bit of a deviation in hump is going to allow this to kind of raise up, and these things are not very easy to float thin set under. If you kind of make it a little bit thicker, you're going to be fighting the thin set that's going to come out of the joints. So it's really imperative to have a flat floor with the mosaics. So that's why I didn't go with membrane or Ditra. Great products, just not great in this situation. The other alternative is to do something like Ditra Heat, which is a matte system similar to this, but allows you to float the wires within it. Problem is they don't accept smaller tiles like this. Plus, it's kind of similar to this where this waffle can be problematic to fill and be able to get this to be a nice flat surface. So Ditra Heat, that option was out as far as the heating system. So the best alternative next was actually just do a liquid membrane, because this way I can roll the entire area. There's no seams, and it's going to be, basically kind of like a bathtub. It's going to be completely waterproof. And we're going to be using some of this mesh to go up against the corners of the room so that all of these areas around the bathroom are 100% waterproof. All right, so the supplies that you need, this pretty simple, not much different than painting really. A paintbrush to go around the edges, 1/2 inch roller, 1/2 inch, so that you can make sure that you get a copious amount of this on the floor. This isn't 100% necessary, but this is a film gauge to double check the thickness that you're actually putting it down. But I actually just, my Ditra or my Curdy trowel is basically 1/8 inch. This kind of gives me a reference of it, but really, you just really want to make a nice, really thick coat of it we'll demonstrate that shortly. But you want to mix up the product before you get started. So this is actually something I've been using on many different jobs. I always have a bucket of this on hand, but it's a pretty thick consistency. So just, it's like a pudding basically. So just mix this up a little bit, make sure that there isn't any surface water on top, I guess you could say. So then this is the mesh. This is what we're going to be embedding around the corners. And I'm actually going to do this first because you really should have multiple coats in the corners. So this is just a thin fabric that basically just gets embedded with the actual liquid membrane. So the other thing you want to do is get all the dust off the floor, vacuum things up, wipe everything down with a damp sponge. You know, actually, let me just get the vacuum because it is bad enough in here that I should have vacuumed in here earlier. Okay, so let's get some fabric, go along the edge. All right, so really, this isn't really much different than painting, but you just want to get a nice thick consistency of this on the floor and then embed that deal. So now these walls are going to be tiled as well, but I really, really like the idea of having this waterproof behind the vanity and behind where the toilet is. Just, I don't know, it gives me peace of mind knowing that there's no way that any overflow or accident could get down to the floor below. So whether you're any type of system you're using, I like to do this just to be able to have that insurance, I guess you could say. I'm not wearing gloves, but I should be, because this stuff is kind of nasty to get off your hands, but I don't know what I did with my gloves, so. But yeah, just try to keep this flat. And just embed another coat over top of it. Pretty simple. But this is great. I mean, this is a great system for over concrete. You know, the only thing they're not going to really recommend you still do is go directly on top of plywood, because it's not going to be suitable for the expansion contraction of that. You still have to kind of isolate it, so whether that's cement board or the floor leveler. So, but going over concrete, this is a great way to do it. I'm thankful I did this in my own bathroom, my kid's bathroom, because it's amazing how much water is left over after a bath. And it's like, it just gives you peace of mind knowing that it's not going to get below it and rot out the subfloor. Okay. All right. So this is a very nice area to make sure that you have good waterproofing. So we're going to make sure that we put some mesh here. There's always too many times I see a lot of rotten wood right at these intersections. Okay, so what we'll do is just basically put a decent amount right next to this tub. And what we'll end up doing after this stuff dries is just basically caulking the tub to the waterproofing. And that'll be sufficient for this area. So the first coat really needs to have or all the coats really need to be pretty thick. And this stuff does uniformly dry pretty well, so don't be afraid to get a decent amount on here. But this is definitely a critical area right along the tub. And like I said, we'll caulk this after this waterproofing with a urethane caulk. And then another great area that I think makes a lot of sense is right around the toilet area. So just caulking or just basically applying a thick layer around here, because then once I tile everything, I can basically just cut the rest of the pipe. And now everything's 100% waterproof around the toilet. You don't have to worry about anything getting down through this. Okay, so the main floor, pretty easy. Just get a fair amount on the floor, and we're gonna just roll it with the 1/2-inch nap roller. And I would say it's not really rolling it, it's kind of pushing it as far as the thickness goes. So you want to definitely get enough on here to basically push this around, working it into the substrate. And then you can use one of these film gauges. You need between 15 and 22. So anywhere within here, you want to be able to scrape this and be able to see that filled with the sealant. So the other way, if you don't have this, is really just to, just try to, this is an 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch trowel, and you can see how I have it scraped up and it's kind of filling those voids. So a film gauge works, or you can just use your trowel to gauge it. But really it all comes down to just making sure that you have a really nice thick consistency on the floor. Because you really need to have at least 15 or 22 mils per coat to be within their requirements. And that's just going to give you a durable surface. It's a good thing I have another bucket downstairs. I thought I was going to... So this bucket wasn't full, but 1 gallon should do this. And this was not full, so... Okay, so about an hour or 2 later, it'll be dry to the touch and you'll see this olive green. So we'll put a second coat over everything, and then we'll be set at the right mill thickness to go ahead and do our tile. So that does take about 2 hours almost to completely dry. And then this is gonna take another couple of hours to dry. So you'll typically aren't able to do this all in the same day as far as tiling goes. So that's one drawback to this system, is that you're not able to get everything done in one day and set the tile.